Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Entertainment Expansion. We are your hosts, Tyler Callahan and Mike Ferrante. Mike, how you doing?
I am doing very well, Tyler. I'm excited to continue our discussion from last week.
Yeah, we just can't stop talking about Resident Evil because there's a lot to say.
There it is, with
There's a
a
lot to say.
franchise that's been running for over 20 years.
No, actually, it's 25th anniversary this year, so
Oh, so
big 2-5.
exactly. So that's a long time for a video game franchise.
It is. It is. Very few have reached that milestone. So we thought, well, we had a lot of leftover thoughts from last week with wrapping up Village. Where's Capcom going from here? And obviously, when a new main Resident Evil game comes out, it obviously could affect our top five. And clearly,
Yes, it
based
did.
on our opinions of Village, it has updated our top five. So let's just talk about that first. Mike, what is your updated top five post Village?
All right. Starting from number one. We'll start with number five. So in fifth place, it's got to be Resident Evil 3. Fourth place, oh, screw myself up with this order here. Uh, okay,
Resident
so
Evil
it's seven.
6.
Seven.
Huh?
No,
Okay.
definitely not six. I had to count it down from one. I screwed myself up. So fourth place, Resident Evil 7. Third place is Resident Evil 4. Second place is Resident Evil Village. And first place is Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Okay,
Now,
we are pretty
Tyler,
similar. Pretty
let me
similar.
hear yours.
My list is exactly the same as yours, except for fifth place. For fifth place, for number five, I put Resident Evil 5.
Oof.
3 did not take, and my top five spot. Though if I did have to place 3, it would be after 5. It'd be sixth.
Okay.
Now, my question for you first is why did Resident Evil Village not make first place? Why is 2 still number 1? We're looking at 3 years since that came out.
Yeah, so it has a multitude of reasons why. Now, Village being number two is amazing. Let's
it
put
is,
it
yeah.
that way, because Village is an outstanding game. But through my many playthroughs to get this platinum,
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you. It was a pain in the ass. There was one part of the game that was great the first run, and then every other time it's just like, oh fuck, I gotta do it this shit again. And it's House Benevito with the giant baby and running around and doing all this puzzle shit. It's like, yeah, the first time it was really cool and it was really scary. That then it really loses its luster throughout playthroughs. Everything else in the game is a lot of fun.
I agree with
I
you.
think I
I
think
just want
that's
to play
what kind
devil's
of
advocate here for a second. I do agree with your point. But for a contrarian view, Resident Evil 2 has the same slow, I wouldn't say slow, but like pointless sewer section, or the A and B runs are not super different, and you got to play those multiple times as well. What's the difference? Right? Benevito's only when you know what to do, it's 10-15 minutes tops.
Yeah, but at least Resident Evil 2, it's still more fun because you still get to kill a whole bunch of shit and
Okay. Yeah, no, I get it. I mean,
Benevito, you're running around literally just solving puzzles. Then you got to run from a baby, you got to backtrack. It's just kind of annoying. It's not that fun to replay.
now for it being number
Where
2, do you feel mercenary mode affected your opinion? Like if mercenary mode was
not really
blast to play.
because not really
Okay.
because even though getting the S rank on mercenary mode is not that much fun, it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
nerve-wracking at times. But mercenary mode in Resident Evil 8 is actually a lot more fun than mercenary mode in Resident Evil 4, 5. So I think it's an improvement. So I can't really complain about mercenary mode too much. Maybe, the two sections, like the Village 2, Castle 2, when you literally only have the pistol and you can buy a Magnum or a grenade launcher. That's kind of annoying. But overall, Mercenaries is still pretty fun.
Yeah, I guess I'm letting my trophy hunting ruin the mercenary experience. If I didn't have to worry about S rank, I would be having more fun just running around shooting everything.
Yeah, because it is still a good time, especially like when you know exactly like
Mm-hmm.
what to do.
It feels good when you get a 30-40 combo,
Yeah,
Really helps
and
out.
it, And I like how the higher your combo is, you actually get time back for kills.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's a nice addition in what they did. Now, why 2 is still number 1 is a lot easier to say. That is a flawless remake of complete ground up restoration of the second game. Completely went back to its horror roots with amazing graphics, and you can replay it 100 times. Mr. X following you, you're hearing those footsteps coming towards you, you know you got to run. Doesn't matter how many times you've played it or even sections with the lickers, it's still an overall fun game to play, and it's still a tense game to play, no matter how good you are at it. So I think that's why 2 is still solid number 1.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, for me, my main thing for 8 not topping 2 is two things. One, yeah, it's a bit of my trophy bias, but Mercenary Man, it's put you through the ringer. It's putting me through the ringer right now. But besides Mercenary mode, I think a lack of, because clearly there was some cut content in 8 with the final product. I feel like 8 is a game that had so much packed in. It could have been expanded.
It could have been.
But for 2, it told us, obviously it's a remake, so to be fair, it's like they don't have much to improve on story wise. But it told the story it wanted to do. It did it great, and I left 2 saying, "Wow, what a great story! What a great game!" I left 8 saying, "Well, I kind of want to see the villages more. I know one of the villagers was a playable character. I heard the rumor Chris had more content, and clearly, when he's cut down to about less than an hour, I think that was the case when he's on the main cover. So it's not that the village is bad, but that it should have done more if stuff wasn't cut. What's still there is still great. It's still a great game.
Yes, but hear me out with this. Resident Evil campaigns aren't notoriously long.
Except
Now,
6.
oh, fuck that. So even on your standard village playthrough, right? Your 1st time playing through, it's going to take you about
10 hours.
nine to at most 11 hours, right?
Yeah.
Let's give it that 2-hour window. That's a relatively long Resident Evil game compared to like 7 or even 2.
3.
Well, 3 was, yeah, but that's 3's biggest criticism, that it was too short. Now 3 had a lot of cut content. The original 3 was a longer game, so I feel like that's what kind of hindered it, and that's everyone's biggest problem with the 3 remake, is that there was a lot of cut content, and it was a lot of good content that they cut.
Okay, so while we're on the topic of 3, why is it on your top 5 then? You have a point. It was a lot of cut content compared to 2, which is basically a flawless remake. We both agree on that.
I still had a lot of fun with 3.
Okay.
I did. The graphics were great again. Still told a good story. Listen, these new graphics, I'm in love with them. That whatever Capcom's doing, their RE engine, it's fucking working. Like
it's
everything looks,
it's black magic.
Everything looks beautiful. And the first playthrough of 3 was a good time. It's just, yeah, the game is short, but there was still a lot of fun to be had in 3. Whereas 5, this is why 5 didn't make it. 5 to me is a carbon copy of 4, just with better graphics. Now, the graphics in 5 at the time are amazing. Do not get me wrong. I do like the extensive weapon list you can have in 5, but it's like a lot of the main enemies, or even the regular enemies, it's all carbon copies of 4. Like you got the bag-headed chainsaw guys, like literally repeating. The Ganados are just, the Ganados are literally just stand-ins for, what's it called? When we were in Africa, the civilians there, or the infected civilians. Then when you get to the mercenary island and you have the infected gunfighter shooting AKs, that was also put in. Like a lot of the final bosses were very much the same. So that's why, to me, like, yes, 5 is a fun game to play, but I can't really throw it up there for being a great game because it's kind of riding the coattails of Resident Evil 4 way too much.
Okay. I mean, 5 made my, right, took your spot for 3, kind of for similar reasons that you mentioned, but different. So for 5 for me, obviously, we had a blast playing it together on our road to platinum, and that was a great time. But even solo, I still had a decent time with it.
Yeah, it's
Decent
a
length,
fun game.
yeah, decent length campaign, told a decent story. I think Jill stuff was a little out there, but seeing Wesker one more time was fun. For as much shit we give Chris punching the boulder, it's funny. It's a good time, and like you said, at the time it was great graphics. 3, coming right off 2, is, I think for me, kind of soured the experience. Yes, it still looks great. Yes, the gameplay is still there, but the story isn't as good. It is too short. And, what 2 has, what 3 doesn't, is 2 different characters, but 2 different campaigns, even though they're kind of similar, with A and B routes. For 3, it is the one campaign on multiple difficulties. So you run through it a lot quicker. I mean, weren't you clocking in runs at like an hour and a half
Yeah.
for the entire game? Like, I'm sorry, that is too short. And
Well, I mean, to be fair, my top speed run for Resident Evil 8 is 2 hours and 9 minutes.
yeah, but you had to work your way there. And I mean, for 3, for 3, us taking our time the first time, it took what, 4 hours, 5 hours at most on normal.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Well, yeah, so you put in a lot of work to go from 8 to 10 hours down to 2 hours, 2.5. You didn't have to put in much work to go from 5 to an hour and a half.
No.
And again, I don't hate 3, but coming off 2, because it came out 1 year later,
I think it was rushed. I think that was the biggest issue.
I think so. I think 3 for me would be in the top 5 if the cut content was put back in, was remastered, remade properly, and I think maybe doing something extra, going the extra step. I think like having the Carlos version of the campaign, right? Kind of like how you have Leon and Claire, just the extra step and stuff with the cut content. I think it would easily be my top 5.
I guess. I see where you're coming from, but I don't know.
Also, we get these day one. So also from my point of view, I am also slightly looking at it at a monetary value. I pay $60 for 2. I pay $60 for 3, and $60 for 8. I got my, best value in 2 and 8. I did not get my best value in 3. And no, Capcom, that shitty online mode you throw in does not count.
No, no, I don't even think anyone played it.
No one played it, and they knew they could not charge $60 for this. So we get a multiplayer experience. That's its own game. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, I mean that's
like if they sold it for $30, I'd have a lot more positive things to say.
Yeah,
but no, they sold it for 60 as a full game, and it didn't deliver. That's all.
Fair enough. So I think we have a better question to answer our viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Why is 4 so low on the list?
See, you say so low, but I don't think so. The fact that for basically everyone, it was the number 1 Resident Evil game since the 2 remakes, so over 10 years, 12 years, it was number 1.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the reason why it's now number 3, and you asked me 4 or 5 years ago, it would have been number 1 easily.
Well, yeah.
I think though it's a bit unfair, the graphics are starting to look dated. We're going to talk about the future stuff in a few minutes, but
naturally, we're talking about a game that came out what?
2005.
Fucking 16 years ago.
I think the controls, the stop and shoot kind of thing, that is, again, on replays, it's harder to get into. Now it's not as bad as the original tank controls for RE1. I'm not saying that, but compared to what we have for 2, 3, and 8, it's a lot more fluid. And, as obviously time progressed, it's a lot more fluid. And, hindsight 2020, if we're being honest, Resident Evil 4 isn't that much of a horror game.
No, that's where
it started to dip. Like it rode the line, but then 5 and 6 drove us off the bridge.
Oh yeah. I mean, 4 definitely had its horror moments because you had the jump scares, like that one Ganado jumping out of the oven on fire at you when you're on the island, or also when you're dealing with regenerators and you're just hearing that eerie breathing.
No, but I just feel like, for a horror franchise, I always found it a little weird that the best game in a horror franchise is like an action/horror game with kind
Yeah,
of like quippy one-liners from Leon, which I like. But
that's
let's be honest here. This is not a full-blown horror game, like say a Silent Hill or an older Resident Evil. Like, would you agree
see,
that Resident Evil Village is more of a horror game than 4?
yeah,
Okay.
I would. But Village was just as action packed as 4, I
No,
think.
Village had action moments as well, but I always felt going through 4, sorry, not 4, Village, a lot more tense and nervous than
Oh
say
yeah.
with 4.
Well, I
And
think what had to do with it was the scarcity of ammo throughout Village.
yeah,
I
especially
think
on
that
the
had
first
a
playthrough.
oh yeah, that had a big thing to do with it. 4, there was kind of like ammo was dropping like flies. Like if you ran out of ammo, you were just missing every shot. Apparently.
Also, I don't know how many people listening have played 4. We still recommend it,
Oh, absolutely.
but come on, that actually bullshit on harder difficulties.
Yeah.
Or like, were you just gonna ignore that? Like, no. Like, there's a reason they haven't gone back to that.
Yeah, there is. It's because it really was just annoying more than anything.
But
Nothing
I mean,
about that was a good time.
for me, that's why it's third on the list. And I think, honestly, it's a pretty solid third still. Again, it's still third place, 15 years later.
Yeah.
Is there any other reason that we haven't talked about that why it's third on your list as well?
No, I think that's it because it kind of like you said, it was that tipping point. It was a great game, great story. It's just unfortunately dated. I think that's what kind of knocks it down. Who knows? Maybe with the 4 remake, if it's styled like 2 and 3, that could make it to our number 1 spot. We never know.
Could be. It is over the shoulder. So, with that engine, with those assets, ooh.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a good game, but they would have to make the enemies more difficult, though. I think.
I think they would. I think they would. Let's talk a little bit about the RE4 remake. Now moving forward to over the next few years, we have a couple Resident Evil games in the pipeline. One of them being a Resident Evil 4 remake in the same vein as 2 and 3. What I've noticed from 3 and 8 is for 3, they tried to do a Mr. X knockoff with Nemesis, which didn't go over as well. Like, it wasn't as good.
No, because here's the thing that hindered that. Nemesis is pretty much scripted except for one part of the game. And that's what kind of
once you figure that out, it takes the fun out.
yeah. Whereas Mr. X, he pops up all over the fucking place.
Mr. X does what he wants.
Yes. Nemesis, he does what he wants in that first section of the game, and then it's all scripted.
And but between that and then for Lady Drumus, the vampire lady, I'm worried they're gonna try and throw in another version of Mr. X for the RE4 remake. They seem to like doing it.
I don't know if they could though, because
I feel if you're in the castle, maybe.
who?
But that's saying I don't know. Like, I doubt it's going to be Salazar running around himself. So
No.
Are you going to make an enemy?
They might have to if they're going to go that way, because there's no other enemy that could really be a Mr. X type or a Nemesis or Lady D.
Yeah,
if you think about it,
unstoppable force.
If you think about it, Resident Evil 2 always had Mr. X. Resident Evil 3 always had Nemesis. So those were already built in, that they were following you around wherever you were going. Resident Evil 4 doesn't really have that. And when it comes to Lady D, they kind of made the castle for that reason, which works because that's, her place. But with 4, I don't really know if they could do that and if it would work.
Yeah, I do wonder if for 4, all right, so 2 was a perfect remake, 3 they cut too much out. I wonder if for 4 they're going to add more to it, if they will expand the story, and if in doing so, they're able to add a few new enemies and make it fresh.
That's a good question.
Which I'm not against, but I think Capcom knows RE4 is the golden goose. You don't fuck with the golden goose.
I feel like they're going to play it safe. I think it's just going to be a remade version of it.
I think after what happened with 3, I think that might be the case.
I don't think they're going to add anything to it because Resident Evil 4 was also a longer game itself.
Yeah, they're not going to cut anything either.
Yeah, I think they're done making cuts.
Though they could improve the Ashley parts. Wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, pain in my ass.
You know, have better AI that can listen to you. It's been 15 years, but we got the technology. So besides RA4, which as of now, the current rumors peg 2023, I think, the earliest. So it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
There's two other games in development, which is Resident Evil Outbreak, which is alleged to be Revelations 3, and obviously Resident Evil 9. So continuing our conversation from last week, Mike, where would you're now the game director of Resident Evil 9. You have to close out this trilogy, 7, 8, and 9. Where do you go? What do you want?
I don't want to see Ethan's superpowered daughter as the main character, but I think that's where they're going, and that's kind of annoying. Now, let me rephrase that. If she has powers like, I don't know.
I would say control the mold, but what mold is left?
True. But then again, she herself is mold, so she could technically create it. Just like how Evelyn did. Now, if she was just a little bit faster and stronger than an average person, maybe I could get behind playing with that. But if you're throwing like superpowers in there, you lost me.
Yeah, I mean, that threat she did to the agent made it seem like she can do some crazy shit.
Yeah. What I'd like to see is Resident Evil 9 actually take place between 8 and the epilogue.
I think, yeah.
Because there seems to be that Chris has some words with the BSAA, and I think that's a game I'd like to see. Now we're getting into dangerous action territory again, because if it's going to be 9, it's going to be first person, hopefully.
I would assume so. Yeah, you got to complete the trilogy the same way. It'd be weird if you didn't.
But it's not really a trilogy anymore because the father's story is done.
Well, I'm considering it a trilogy right now because if we go by, let's say, camera style, 1, 2, 3 are kind of its own thing. 4, 5, 6 over the shoulder. Some things are connected, but that's how it is now. 7 and 8 are first person. For 7 and 8, the story is a lot more connected than the previous games.
Yeah.
But I think you can make it work with Chris because we're assuming he goes in there. Yeah, there's going to be a bit of action, but who's to say? Him and his team don't get overrun. They got to break out. They got to break out of the facility. They're low on ammo. They see that they're breaking out. They drop in the BOWs. So now limited ammo. You got to fight BOWs. Like, we're assuming they go in head first and just destroy everyone.
Yeah.
Like, if there's a chance they're captured or they're overpowered and they break out, you have limited weapons now. Assuming they turn off the power, you have your setting, drop in the BOWs, because clearly the soldier they captured was a BOW, apparently. Now you have your horror setting for the game. So it can be a mix of action and horror like 8, but they don't have to willingly go into all action like 6.
Oh, I hope not. Because here's the thing with that.
Mm-hmm.
The BOWs can shoot weapons, like guns and stuff like that. So I feel like we're getting into dangerous territory again.
That's true, but I don't know. Because I feel like you can also throw in, like, if they're captured and they break out, you have the horror setting. You can even throw in Leon, coming in to help, like, say somehow he hears and stuff like that. You can get the old gang back together. But you're right. If some of them can shoot, I feel, I don't know, maybe they ran out of the ones that can shoot. We don't know how long they've been producing in the BOWs.
True. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's kind of hard to predict where they're going to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, coming out of 7.
My concern is this is going to be DLC. This is going to be another Chris DLC, like 2-3 hours, and that's it. That's my worry.
Probably not.
Because that cliffhanger, that's a full game right there. That's a game.
Yeah. Now, I wouldn't mind a DLC where Chris is working his way through the village.
Yeah, that I would like to see.
Like, I wouldn't mind a DLC with that.
Like how to get to Heisenberg's lair, how to get at the bottom undetected apparently, or did he fight his way through?
Yeah.
That's a campaign right there.
Yep. That's a 3 to 4 hour DLC. You could even
Mhm.
do it in episodes if you really wanted to.
Yeah, stretch it out.
But no, 9 will have to be a whole new story that kind of continues off of where they left 8. Well,
Yeah, which would be with Chris.
that we know of. It's either Chris or the daughter.
But if we go to like Chris, we just laid out a pretty good scenario of where they can go to keep the action horror mix. Let's go to the daughter. You now have a 55, 60-year-old Chris who's a lot older. And this is assuming she ages regularly. Who is she fighting?
Yeah, she
Like we're going on the assumption BSAA has either been dealt with or Chris has lost the battle, went into hiding, and BSAA is just doing their shit for 15 years. And now she takes up the fight for her father. Like that seems kind of weird.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they didn't really give us anything that who the next antagonist would be other than the BSAA.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's got to be them.
Yeah, it's got to be them.
I don't know. That's why I feel like
I feel like they wouldn't do the hint. I feel like they wouldn't write all the files and have Chris have those scenes where he's so annoyed. Like the first thing he tells one of his men is like, find out what they're doing here. Like, well, aren't you working with them? Huh? Why do you want them? Why do you want to know? Like, clearly they're building up. There's issues. The Baker files hint towards it. Why are you writing all this lore if you're not going to do something with it?
it's true, which tells you that they're gonna do something with it.
I would hope so, because it's going to be a missed opportunity if there's no game about this.
I feel like that's the only way. Let's be honest. Capcom doesn't really write themselves into a hole. Like, when's the last time they really wrote themselves into a hole?
I mean, depending on which way they go, I feel they just kind of did with the epilogue. They wrote themselves into a corner if they follow her as the main protagonist for 9, and we're doing it not that she like Evelyn ages faster, so it's like 2 3 years or 5 years. No, it's 15 years. It's like you wrote yourselves into a corner, man.
Yes and no, because that's titled epilogue.
It
It's
is
15 years later, so 9 could realistically be the events that happened before that, and they could just never really touch her story.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
Because you have a 15-year time span that you can play with.
Yeah, it's 15 years for different games, and then eventually you get to her.
Which, let's hope we never see that day. Because I don't want to play a super powered Resident Evil game. Because if you're super powered, what the fuck are the enemies gonna be?
Yeah. So see, but that's the thing. If that's the case, then we're gonna have some bullshit intro where she's super powerful. At the end of the tutorial, something happens to her. She loses her powers, and it's like that's just shitty writing.
Yep.
Because you promised me something and you're taking it away.
Yeah. I don't know where they're gonna go with it. I'm looking forward to see where they're gonna go with it, but that's gonna be quite some time.
I guess the good thing to say about it is the fact that they can go many different ways leaves us like wondering, like we're doing right now. We're just wondering. There's so many different ways they can go. It's keeping things fresh.
It's true.
Now, it might be a good kind of fresh, might be a bad kind of fresh, but at least it'll be fresh.
This ain't wrong.
Well, I do think we have a few interesting years ahead of us for Resident Evil. I think since Resident Evil 7, Capcom has been killing it for the most part because, again, even with the issues with 3, it's still not a bad game.
No, it's still a great.
Just a short one. So
yeah.
they've been doing great work.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to their future projects. As long as they keep up doing what they're doing. But that's enough about what we think about the games and our personal lists. What we want to know is, what is your top 5 Resident Evil games that you have ever played and that is your favorite? Feel free to let us know at Entertainment Expansion. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And you may have heard us talk about our Road to Platinum for Resident Evil 5. That is another video that we have on YouTube. Feel free to check it out, see how we played the game, and as always, thank you for listening.